what we're trying to do in this session is to provoke a response from you. I'm going to be making some, let's say, some provocative statements. This is all about channel attribution and where we should be getting value for money and how. And so if you'd like to make a comment, or if you've got a question, either pop it in chat or put your hand up. And if you don't, I'll be out there in the audience saying, now, John, could you come up to the stage, and Carmen or Henri will bring you up. The idea is to make this interactive. It's not just me mouthing off about my pet subject. And it is my pet subject because I think that the deception that is being practiced is very close to fraud in many cases. Not all cases, but I'm going back to that rather unkind message that digital advertising is fantastic. It's terrific. It's just that there are alternatives which are much more cost effective. And I want to prove that because, yes, I've got attitude, but I've got the figures to back it up too. So let's see if I can convince you. So raise your hand or chat if you want to interrupt me to disagree. So my assertion is that many digital agencies are providing clients with results data which is heavily skewed in favor of digital advertising. The classic case, and this has been going on for 10 years, is that the ROI, return on investment, or the ROAS, the return on advertising spend, to you and me, this is just an A to S ratio. That ratio is often distorted by the manner in which the data is passed and segmented. So for instance, the classic trick is to say, well, you're getting a ROAS, that is an A to S ratio, of 10 to 1. Well done, Nigel. And then you say, well, hold on, have you included brand terms by any chance? And they say, well, yes, you know, it's all part of your campaign. You say, now please take the brand terms out. In other words, those search terms that include the name, Scotts of Stowe, Bloom, Expert Verdict, whatever it may be. And then what's your ROAS? It's 3.6. Okay. To which I then say, well, we have a problem here because we need advertising costs to be no more than about 37% of net sales. Take 37 relative to gross sales, in other words, 120 with the VAT, and you've got about, whatever it is, 3.15, I believe it is, to 1. That's what I can afford. And within the sales that you are claiming as part of your ROAS, your return, I know I've got lots of orders in there which are actually potentially triggered by the catalog that I mailed out or other digital advertising. So I need to be up at 4.5 or 5 to 1 to know that I'm getting value for money. So mixing of brand terms and non-brand terms is a cardinal sin. So that's one of them. The other thing is that when you look at attribution, let me ask you this as a question. What on earth do you do about the customer who comes to your website as a result of, we're not quite sure yet, and they surf around the site, they don't visit it, they don't complete an order, and out they go. They then pop onto an affiliate site, see if they can get a discount, but they see, oh, it's only 2% with Scotts of Stowe, I won't bother with that, so off they go. You then go back to the site to check the sizes to make sure they've got everything sorted. And as a result of that second visit, they then get a remarketing ad from us. So there's another touch point. They then receive an email. And then finally, they've got their decision made. They know what they want to purchase. They go back into your site, and except they go in by pressing the name of the product, clicking on the name of the product in Google advertising, because it's there. Your organics are way down these days. First page, as we all know, is all ads. And so you've got another gatekeeper to pay there. And so there they are. There's 6 touch points to this customer. And there's one other, and that is that you mailed that customer 6 months ago, sorry, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, with a catalog. So how on earth do we set a budget for digital advertising? How do we pass all these credits and make a sensible sort of judgment as to what is actually triggering the sale? Well, there are many ways. We'll come on to attribution methods in a minute. But if anyone wants to disagree with what I'm saying, please hold your hand up. and say, no, this is totally unfair. But if not, let's go on to another attribute, which is quality. Is it all about the number of leads and the number of conversions you get? Wouldn't it be logical to actually consider quality? And what do I mean by quality? I mean the value of that customer, the order value that they, because that does vary massively through channels, their longevity, and how frequently they purchase. And so when you start looking at that, what our statistics show is that the customer who is acquired through digital channels, the pure online customer, new customer who comes in, shared of all other triggers, shall we say, the clean acquisition, they're spending less than half what a customer is who joins as a result of receiving your mail order catalog. So that means that I really should be applying some sort of factor to the value of customers. I can't treat those two customers as equal. In simple DM terms, the lifetime value of the online customer is less than half the lifetime value of the mail acquired customer. The customer acquired through newspaper inserts, by the way, when they bother to actually insert them, don't lose them, they're worth about midway between the two. They're worth 75%, approximately. Forgive me if it should be 72, Lisa, but about 75% of the value of a mailed customer. So, you know, that kind of gives me another reason to favor direct mail. And you may say, oh, yes, but Scott's & Co.'s got a pretty old audience. So maybe it's just the fact that they're comfortable with the old-fashioned ways. Well, as I said this morning, now that the Sunday Times has declared that catalogs are cool, you need to take another look. I've just been listening to the Royal Mail presentation of the JIC Mail data. Younger people are very active, and on our younger brand, the Bloom, we're finding the same thing. Those customers who come in via direct mail are worth far more than those who come in online. So this isn't just a factor related to the age of the customer. So what have we got then? We have to apply a value metric to all these attribution elements that are coming towards us. 6 different channels competing for, I call it channel wars sometimes, because I've seen it happen. You know, the online team and the offline team and the TV team form up in front of the CEO and they say, can you sort out our squabble, please? The online team wants credit for this order, but they've actually received a catalog. And the CEO, who reads the FT every morning, says, well, we're an online first company, aren't we? So let the online channel have all the credit, which is just criminal, because that just will cause the online marketing team to start spending more digital advertising money, which is far less cost effective. And so let's move from there. If I still haven't caused anyone to start shouting and saying, no, that's just not right. Let's go a bit further. What people should be doing is taking all the response which is source unknown, or at least, sorry, step back one. Your response comes in online. If they've given a source code, which is the catalog source code, I think anyone would agree, attribute that to the catalog mailing. But then there's a whole bunch of people left. So run all of those people who are left, who didn't give you a source code, the source unknown, the bucket codes, run them against the people who you mailed just in the last 30 days and take those out. Now, we apply a 60-day attribution. We call that an attribution window. Bowden applies 90 days. So anyone who has had a catalog in the last 90 days and then goes online to place their order, which most people do because it's easier, because you get an instant record of your transaction. They attribute all of those back to the catalog. So Johnny's saying, I hate the catalog because it's so darn expensive, but without it, we wouldn't have our traffic online. And now look at the whole thing upside down. Let's look at a couple of business failures. Past Times was a very successful retail business with 60 retail stores. The CEO and owner at the time, John, who's still in the business and very successful with museum selections, said to me, Nigel, we're no longer a catalog business, we're a retail business. And he started reducing his catalog distribution. That resulted in a massive drop in footfall. Same thing happened with Hawkins Bazaar, acquired by private equity. I even warned them because Toby, the son of the founder, got onto me and said they're going to cut the catalogue. And I wrote 3 pages saying, if you do this, you will cut off your supply of footfall to your 100 toy stores. They did it, and that supply was cut off, and they went out of business. And one final example is the innovations example back in the 19 something, probably 92 or something like that. We decided in Milton Keynes that our stores, which were all called leading edge around the country, let's just change Milton Keynes to the innovation store. We immediately got a massive increase in our turnover. It was like 70%. Why? Because we were mailing people. But that's not quite the full story, because we were always mailing inserts in the press. What had happened was I arrived there and I said, well, how many people are you mailing with the innovations catalogue in this area? Oh, it's about 23,000. I can't remember the exact numbers. And how many have you got in total? Of 30,000, we're mailing 23. Okay. We then opened it up under innovations. It went mad. Almost a year later, I came back and said, can I see the Milton Keynes figures? The Milton Keynes figures had dropped massively. And I said, whoa, what's happened? Have all our customers gone away? How many customers have we got in the area? 32,000. How many are we mailing? We're mailing 4,000. And of course, what had happened is those people had migrated their sales habits to the retail store and were no longer buying by mail order. So we cut them off the mailing list. So this whole question of attribution makes or breaks businesses. It has broken businesses because people haven't been able to capture at retail point of sale and often online what the original trigger of the response was. And if you turn it around, it's a fantastic boost for your whole marketing program, because we heard about the blip that occurs after TV advertising. I didn't really understand that. Artigiano, we went out, we spent £100,000 on advertising in support of this beautiful fashion brand in February. In July, I said, it hasn't worked, write it off, that's it. I was looking for new customers. A year later, when I'm looking to sell the business, I look back and I think, what's this great big bump in January of 2017 and February 2017 compared to 16 and 18? And I suddenly realized that bump was existing customers seeing the ad on TV, thinking, oh, my brand is on TV, let me order more. I hadn't tracked the growth in demand from existing customers. So whenever I'm talking TV advertising these days, I said, don't measure it in success in terms of new customers, measure it in terms of existing customers. And there's one other factor that we need to take account. So going back to how we attribute responses back to the original trigger, we've done our order code allocation. We've then matched back to the last 30, 60, 90 days. We've still got a whole bunch of people left. Now, what do we do those? Well, in our case, we attribute them smoothly across all of the channels in proportion to the turnover taken in. That's actually wrong. What I should be saying is, well, hold on. We know from tests that we undertook 20 years ago that there's a thing called pass-along. And pass-alongs often don't use the code because there's a personalized premium check, whatever, and they can't use that, but they still order from the catalog. How do we know that? Because we launched a business called Viva, Health and Wellbeing, back in 2004. We had no website. And so when we got response in, we found there was an extra 4 or 5% response, and it might have been 6, but let's say 4% response of people we hadn't mailed. And so we said, well, this has to be pass along. And I've used that statistic ever since. I'm not using it now, but when people say that mailing's a bit marginal, I'm going to say, well, hold on. After the offer code people and after the matchback, I've got 2 other weapons here. One is the pass along. I know there's 3% of that number there that are probably pass along. And so I should be adding those in. And do we just ignore the impact on our retail stores? I mean, you could go to a retail store in our retail store in Stow-on-the-Wold on Sunday morning. They'd be queuing outside, each one with their little catalogue ready to order. And so that wasn't added back. At the time, we reckoned it was 7 or 8% as an impact relative to the turnover taken on the insert. There was an extra 8% arriving with catalogue in hand at our store. We don't do that anymore. We have far too big a turnover to be natural in Stow on the Wold. It's because of all our advertising and all our direct mail. And we can still see that blip in response. And that's what online teams should be doing in the UK, I would argue. Look when the catalogue mails and just look for the delta between the background level of turnover and the blip when you mail your catalogue. Can I possibly draw any of you to disagree with this? Because what I'm essentially saying is that digital advertising is great, but direct mail is so much better. It's just worth more. The customers are worth more. It's scalable because digital is not scalable. I think I gave the example this morning that if you want 30,000 new customers, mail 2 million catalogs. You'll lose very little. You'll probably lose 1, 2. If you've done your homework right, you lose 1 or 2 or 3 pounds per customer. You go out there trying to acquire 30,000 new customers through digital, and you're going to pay £300,000 because the price of digital is going up. And there's another thing. I went to this conference 3 weeks ago, and it was a conference which was under the title Digital Advertising, a real alternative urgently needed. So 40 CEOs, founders met up in Park Lane at this session. I sat quietly, and they're all bemoaning the fact that Facebook costs are going up and their reach is worse. The quality of leads coming through is not as good. There are problems with prices going up in Google advertising, and they were just, it was a woe is me sort of conference. None of them were using paper. And I just, well, look, here are the relative figures. This is what we achieve in online advertising, how much we spend. This is what we do in inserts. This is what we do in direct mail. These are the relative lifetime values. And I had even the Selfridges lady say, could we speak? But that makes me think of one other story, which is in long time ago, 88 or something like, no, it's a bit later than that, would have been 92, 93. Selfridges put up its business for sale, its mail order business. So I formed up there. I was owning Innovations at the time and said, yeah, we'd like to. I came in, I saw them all, and I met the retail director of Selfridges. And they'd had a catalogue being run by a lovely Canadian guy, I can't remember his name. And the retail director, in other words, the bricks and mortar part of the business, said, we see this catalogue as competition. We don't want to support it. We don't want it in the store. This is stealing customers from our store. And faced with naivety like that, and those channel wars still exist. There's still a lot of retailers who believe that a mail order catalogue detracts. I tell you, if I had a retail store, if I had a startup of retail store, let alone a chain, I would be launching a catalogue. Question from John at Royal Mail. What do you think to the scan to shop application that Sophie from Market Reach was talking about? I'm wondering if, you're talking about the QR code, John. Why don't we ask John to just come up onto the platform? It's always much easier if we've got you up here. Carmen, can you facilitate that, or Henri? I'll just read the rest of it.
I've invited John. He just needs to accept.
It has just been launched across the full Argos Christmas catalogue, so it'll be great to see how it affects straight to mobile purchasing.
Hi, Nigel.
Hiya. I didn't grasp the full significance of what Sophie was saying. So they're deploying this, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I've just picked up my copy today to try it out. So it's the full Argos Christmas catalogue, and in it has the Scan to Shop app, which I've been playing around with, and I won't do a show you how it works now because I haven't quite got the hang of it at the moment. But basically means you can use your phone on the catalogue, take a picture of a product or a product page, and it takes you straight to that product on your mobile on the Argos website, so you can just add to basket.
Nice. I haven't thought of using that. Tell me, what does full catalogue mean these days? How many pages, John?
It's not too bad. It's not the big catalogue, but it is 212 pages. So Oof. It's a Christmas catalogue. And it's nice quality, actually. You were talking about paper, some quality earlier on, and it's got a great cover. It's a good size. So it feels really good.
In my book, that's not optimized because that's over 250 grams.
Now, It is not, knowing Argos, it's not mailed. I don't know whether they are mailing any copies, but I went into Argos earlier on just to pick it up to trial it out. So that's obviously something that we would recommend. And they have done some mailings, I know that, but it's just the application of getting people to use their mobile and a catalogue, which I think works really well for anything to bring that capability, sort of, and just make it a lot faster, a lot less clicks, and sort of making the whole catalogue easy to shop.
Well, I mean, as you might have heard earlier, the most cost-effective way to, how can I use it, to take greatest advantage of Royal Mail rates and DSA rates is to actually mail small format, because if you like, pound for pound of investment, it is much more cost-effective. So we mail a big catalogue to our main file, and the challenge for me with paper prices, I got an update from this morning. I was working on the basis that our paper prices were going up by 30%. I've just had an email at about 2 o'clock saying they're going up 37%. The impact of that on, so 65% of the mailing cost, the cost of mailing the whole piece is the darn paper. So that is a very significant cost. It is likely to impact volumes, but maybe we'll just take the paperweight down. There will be solutions to this, but I suspect that it'll be short term because this will stifle demand for paper, that sort of increase. This is energy, of course, John.
Yeah.
But so Argos, if Argos were to ask my opinion, which they won't, I would say, for goodness sake, get to tease a catalogue out there with your very best products and and then put a measurement device in there. Ask them to present that catalogue for a special award when they go into the store, or bait the hook. Give yourselves a way of, or make the customer do it. Pass this catalogue in front of a scanner at each retail store. There must be a scanner available. Please, could you swipe this catalogue? Thank you. Oh, I see you've got a £2 credit, madam. It would be worth that just to, because they then spend it, it'd be worth that just to calibrate the actual impact of the retail footfall that's generated by that little catalogue. Ours is always under 100 grams on recruitment.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you can see from what you're saying that actually a huge number of new brands have gone into catalogues just this year, really. So,
Yeah.
but it's just making that sort of that process of purchasing between a digital, phone, catalogue, all that easier is hopefully only going to help printed catalogues.
I wonder if we've got anyone in the audience who is in digital advertising, meaning a digital agency. I would love them to stand up and say I'm talking a load of rubbish, because in digital terms, perhaps I am, I don't know. I'm not quite raw green in the area, but there are lots of things I don't know about the latest techniques. There's no one in digital here. They probably think, oh, that's old Swabey dinosaur. But that also worries me. An awful lot of people say, oh, catalogues, so surely that's old fashioned. I mean, it is the most cost of, you can't argue with the figures. It is cheaper to acquire new customers using paper and direct mail. And if you put in the values of the customers, it is substantially cheaper to use direct mail rather than inserts or online. So
and as you mentioned earlier on, it's massively scalable as opposed to digital. I think you were talking about yourselves at the time.
I just made a note at lunchtime to get my FD to do a 25-year profile of our profits, because I've done this before. I need it for an analyst session next week. The years when we've had the best profitability have been the years where we've indulged in what I call macho mailing. Now, it's really blitzing an enormous quantity of catalogues. And I still believe now that there are masses of benefits which are hidden as a consequence of having so many catalogues in homes. We'll get response weeks and weeks, I mean months after a catalogue drops. We don't measure that. It goes into a pot and then gets distributed across all channels. There's so many elements that I just can't see. Some sage in America called it the age of the disappearing customer. Well, we're determined to get eyes on that customer somehow. Match back is one way, and anyone can do that. It's not difficult. take this file and see how many of them are on this file. Look at the percentage. And in our case, we get 75 to 85%. I mean, there's 4 out of 5 people that are going online have started their journey with a catalog. There's another way you can look at it. In fact, you can say, all right, so what's my cost per click on a catalog? So click, all right, what's my advertising cost per person? I'm spending 350, so that's 35 pence each to do a small catalog mailing, 65 pence to do a big catalog mailing. So I'm spending 35 pence. How does that compare? And I'm showing 400 products for that 35 pence. Now look at digital advertising, Google advertising, I'm showing 1 product. How much have I paid? 15 pence probably. Now the hope is that they'll come in and they'll then spend on other things, but you haven't exposed them to other merchandise. So they're probably not, and maybe that explains why their order values are lower in the digital sphere, because they've only seen the 1 product. Or they might come through an affiliate and just be focused on that 1 product. But nowhere am I paying as much as 35 pence. And so when you play the attribution game, and I must mention that as part of the malpractice, there are still agencies who are saying, oh, well, last click, counts. And what they mean is they may have been through, they've received a catalog and then they've been through all sorts of touch points, but the touch point they touch last, which might be a Google ad, that gets the whole of the attribution of the entire order and its profitability. That is nonsense. There are other people, Julian Berry is his name, I can't remember, but chap who was here last year, might be here this year. He's got an attribution model. My problem with this model is that they're very complex. They've developed them, but I will challenge Julian when we get to discuss his model in detail, because I believe that catalog, that presentation of 400 products, the little one, is much more powerful than anything I can do online. So I don't want to pass it up on an equal basis between the 9 touch points, no chance. And
so a question to you then, Nigel, with everything you've just said about some paper or direct mail being the best way for a scalable acquisition and for customer lifetime value that you've mentioned a few times, what do we need to do for the industry to actually get that across to people? Hi, Julian.
I'll answer that in a second. But let me answer it first, and then I want to bring Julian in because that's really interesting that Julian's joined us. What can we do to get that across? So many things. Improve your website to make it more accessible. Finding the right postal rate is really difficult. You know, the postal rate which applies to what you have in, and publicize things like economy mail. An awful lot of people haven't heard about economy mail yet. It's an extra 10 to 20 pounds off their mailing cost, potentially. And none of our mailings are that critical that we don't mind mailing it 3 more days. Better publicity, better PR. Your legal department needs to wake up. Every time I invite them to get involved, they say, oh, we couldn't possibly, Ofcom will be on our back. You're too frightened of the regulator in your sector. You need to be a bit braver about blowing your own trumpet and giving the press the information they want. I sent the FT to you the other day. They wanted empirical evidence that supported the assertion that we had doubled our mailings for a reason, and he was going to carry, the editorial board of the FT wanted to carry the story. I asked Royal Mail if they could possibly endorse it with some details, and the response was, oh no, this will take 2 weeks to clear. So anyway, so that partly was for Julian. Hello, please defend the cause of digital. Or
I thought I ought to come on. Just to say that actually I support everything you've said so far. And in the question of the relative weight of the catalogue versus the different digital events is one of the key things that good AI sorts out. Saying, you know, if you've got 6 events leading up to an order, they're all equal. The has to look at the power of the catalogue in the context of all the other things going on. So it's not, there's not bias against or for, it will just look at the overall contribution.
I'm just trying to think what data elements, what data points the algorithm could read to determine the value, because it's measured across time, it lasts longer in the home. Yep. The average order value is higher. how does the algorithm know that? Well, yes, you'd have to have our matchback file. We'd need to upload all of the mailings so that you know who did receive the catalogue.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
has to be part of the attribution. Yes.
Ah.
So
Well, I know you're due to do some work for us, aren't you? I think we've gone ahead. I've told you.
thank you. Yeah, yes. So try and prove to you that it gives a fair. I mean, it's all to do with fairness at the end of the day. Is to get the correct level. That's one direction or the other, and that's what our AI technology is designed to do. Yeah. And you will see what the outcome is. Hopefully, like it.
I have a confession to make, Julian. My third one today, I think. At lunchtime again, I called Jeff Taylor, who is here under Mailtrain Media with Mailtrain Media hat on, and I said, Jeff, when we're currently working with our agency, I think they're called Fusion, they're up in Leeds. When we accept their 4-to-1 ROAS on our paid search, we're not deducting from those orders which they've attributed. We're not deducting matchback, are we? And he said, no, we're not. I said, so we're double counting. We're counting that response when it comes in response to a paid search, and we're counting it because when they responded, we've matched them back to the catalogue. Yes, he said. So I'm inaccurate, and I'm doing it if only to try to maintain a foothold in paid search. We're only spending, I want to say, £10,000 a year. No, a month, £120,000 a year, which is very, very small. So if you can help me through that particular issue, that would be great. How the heck do I find what my true ROAS is when I've taken out the guys who actually received a catalogue or some part of that attribution? Good. Well, I'm going to look forward to that, Julian. If you can, I think my prejudice is based on watching or reading too many of Kevin Hillstrom's emails and others where he says, watch out for the vendor's attribution models. Their models come in, they'll offer them to you free. Why do they do that? Because their digital advertising arm wants to convince you should spend more digital advertising money. And so they skew it to that side, and that's totally what's possible in America. And I've seen it in the UK, and it's reprehensible. So I'm just trying to sort of call them out in this session with that sort of who's fooling who sort of tease to them. I think I'll have to, thank you, Julian. I'll have to get some other digital people to join us next year. I think it's a shame we've got so few today, but we've got 19. Thank you to the 19. Have we got any other questions coming in? Has anyone in the audience, is anyone in the audience spending a significant amount of money on digital advertising? Tim, you got anything to offer us? Have you got any? Tim Curtis is now at Cotswold Collections, or one of his many roles. And Cotswold, I'm sure, indulges in some digital advertising. Tim, can I get you to come up onto stage just to give us a view? If someone could invite, if Carmen or Henri is around, I can try inviting myself, but I don't know whether it'll work. And maybe Tim's got bored and gone off to another one. Yes, no, it looks like he may have gone off to another one. So we don't have anyone else who is active in the area of.
I have invited Mr. Paul Pates to join you.
Paul.
He's got some interesting points to raise.
Good. Welcome, Paul. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly. Far away.
Well, I don't know if I've got interesting points to raise, but all I was going to say was that we're actually looking to increase our digital spend. So I may think twice about that now a little bit, but we don't do much. But.
Don't let me put you off, but I just want to make sure that you're not getting the wool pulled over your eyes by some very fast-talking, clever digital agency. I mean, I'm worried that I'm getting bad value and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I can't scale it. Maybe when you say digital, is it all in remarketing, or is it in email? Is it in affiliates? Is it in PPC, Google advertising?
Yeah, PPC, Google advertising, retargeting, that sort of thing. We already do quite a lot of emailing, and actually we manage it in-house. So from the attribution point, I do exclude brand terms from attribution at the moment. So we look at it, on PPC, it's purely a return on investment or return on sales, as you suggest. So yeah, it's just whether we can do more of it, I guess.
It's interesting, a level of spend, because it's digital advertising is great on the first £1,000. There's the cream that can be taken off the pudding very profitably. You then try to scale it and it gets darn difficult. At least it does in my case. Maybe it's easier is this the seeds business or the garden plants business, or?
Well, both. And actually that is a bit of an issue because seasonality plays an important part for us as well. So, clearly if the sun's shining and people are in the garden, then searches tend to go up, but then we don't often have time to react because the weather is quite, variable. And also having the product available at that particular time of year. So, a good example is that quite often people are searching for tulips in May and April because, of course, that's when they're in the garden. But they're not actually for sale until the autumn. So, again, that's a bit of a challenge for us to make sure we're, in the digital age, people want the product immediately or as quickly as possible. And obviously with gardening, quite often, when it's in the garden is different from when you'd actually sell it or plant it. So.
Yes. Have any of your digital guys told you what proportion of the response you're getting from PPC and Google Ads are already customers of one of the businesses?
No, I haven't looked at that actually. Probably could do that. Clearly it's a recruitment channel, so that if we're not recruiting, a high percentage, then there's not a lot of point doing it. But no, should look at that.
It's I keep saying to our people, I wish we could spend more money on email. We're not emailing at the intensity, anything like the intensity of the American companies at the moment. I mean, Frontgate, I think, caught them doing 2 a day, and it's certainly 1 a day, every day, throughout the year. It's just hundreds and hundreds of emails. You don't need much response, as you know, because there's hardly any cost. This is just sort of putting your hand up and saying, remember us, we're here, you got your catalogue 10 days ago, whatever. Doesn't need to be an offer, although most people do resort to giving an offer in emails. So what proportion of the business is online, or is that a kind of a commercially sensitive figure, Paul?
No, not really. Well, in terms of as an order channel, I guess it's about 80% for us at the moment. It varies by brand, but of course, as you've quite rightly pointed out, a lot of that is driven by offline activity.
Yeah, 80% online. You lucky devil. But if you were to stop mailing your catalogues, that would probably dry up a lot of it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, we do lots of tests and hold out tests, and we know that even customers, because we look at when customers sort of what channel. When I say channel, order channel, so post, phone, web, they order from, and even customers who only ever ordered online from us, send them a catalogue, and within X days they will have placed an order online. So we know the importance of it.
Yes, we find that we break our segmentation is based on several data points. One is if they've only ever ordered online, or if they were recruited online and never placed a catalogue, then they get one frequency of catalogue mailing through the year. They'd be called pure online disengaged, whereas the top sellers engaged catalogue customers, which is the equivalent of 0 to 3 month high value multis in old money. They will respond typically at 10-14%, which is what drives me mad. A journalist or a colleague will say, well, what sort of response do you get? You say, well, in some segments it's 0.5%, in others it's 14%. What do you want me to look at? That's the whole art of circulation management.
But one thing that we have found, which is quite interesting actually, is the customers that have never ordered online from us, so only ever by post or phone, are far more loyal, place bigger orders, and have a greater longevity, which is, I guess, logical because they're not getting bombarded by other people trying to sell them stuff. But so again, it's a bit of a catch-22 because if anything, we'd rather they didn't order online because they'll stay with us longer and spend more. But
yeah, well, this is going to be my argument, not argument, but my debating point with Julian when he runs his algorithm across our data. I'm going to be saying, fine, so the algorithm says that I should attribute this much to each of these online sources, online advertising sources of new customers, but can I now put in this value factor? Because if they're only worth 50% of my pure offline people, I need to downgrade all your figures by 50% to actually level the playing field. So it's going to be, but it gets very complex. Maybe Julian's got that covered too, but I need to feed him my lifetime value figures as well as the material he needs for Matchback. So like all good things, it's complex. Carmen, you've appeared, or at least your logo has appeared.
We've invited Julian up, but we just have about 3 minutes left.
Okay. If there's anyone else who would like to pitch in anything, Julian, there you are. Julian, you can answer that question.
Yeah, to me, the art of attribution is actually rather than number of orders. In other words, you take the value of each order and then work out what has contributed to that order. And so orders way up great. However, that's a different point to the longer term value, which has to be approached separately to the initial attribution.
Yes. So it's nice that you do that, because that takes the first level of downgrade. Then I want the second downgrade being the lower LTV, the lower lifetime value. Fascinating. Have you got lots of boffins who've put this together for you, did you say?
We just do one actually in Germany to help us as well. So we are
brilliant. Well, I keep an entirely open mind. If you can show me how to calibrate the true value of digital advertising, it would release us to be able to spend a lot more potentially in that area.
Yeah.